Okay, so let us continue. So now to summarize what we have seen so far, right? Like, so we started with this goal, which is to maximize the margin, right? Like, so we were interested in finding WB such that argmax of WB, the margin, right? So the margin definition when we started was a little bit complicated. So the margin definition was minimum over n, T of n W transpose P of xn plus B divided by W, right? So this was the objective function with which we started. Now, this is complex and computationally like more more demanding because you have a minimization function inside, right? Like, so now the simple idea that we did was, what if I just set the solution for min to be 1? Okay, and we found that it is indeed possible because you can just play with W and B such that you can have the solution for this min to be 1, right? So then the problem becomes simpler. So the problem becomes something like this. So where you're doing argmax, but there is just the denominator 1 over W. You don't have the min function at all. But subject to this new canonical constraints that P of n multiplied by Y of n should be greater than or equal to. Is that clear? Now you can also do the min version of it. So arg min W square subject to some constraint. Now, so now this, right, problem that you are seeing, this is actually one of the standard problems in optimization. Okay, this is a quadratic programming problem because you have a quadratic function that you want to minimize, subject to linear inequality constraints. Right, so this is a quadratic function, and you're trying to minimize this quadratic function with respect to linear inequality constraints. Right. Now there are efficient solvers available to solve quadratic optimization problems. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder why the power is 2.
Oh, that is just to often like the W square and 1 by 2 are just to make things easy for some math. So as I mentioned before, it doesn't matter, right? Like, so like minimizing W, same as minimizing W square. So, okay. So now there is one small catch though. So it appears that by doing this reformulation by the canonical representation, my function that I'm trying to minimize is free of bias. So where is the bias term here? I'm doing arg min with respect to W and B, but there is no bias term here. So does that mean B is set to free? Huh? No, why?
It's in the inequality.
Because it is in the inequality, right? Like, so for every small change that you're going to do to W, B has to be compensated accordingly because it is in the inequality. So the inequality has to be satisfied, okay? So B is there, but in a very indirect way. Is that clear? Okay. So now we are going to solve this specific function, okay? Now solving this function requires like using Lagrangian formulation for this constraint optimization problem. So which was your reading several weeks back. Okay, so had you done such reading, this is going to be a very straightforward process. If you did not do the Lagrangian formulation reading, like, so then you have to follow very carefully. So we're going to do a Lagrangian formulation. So the idea is to take the constrained optimization problem into an unconstrained optimization problem so that I can compute gradients, set it to 0 and find the solution. Okay. Now, how do I do that? So the Lagrangian formulation for the previous objective function is going to look something like this. So I have the function that I'm trying to minimize. Okay. Now there are also a bunch of constraints here, right? I'm going to take these constraints and add it to the objective function directly. Okay. So how am I going to do that? I want to maximize the constraint instead of minimizing. So I'm going to add minus here. Summation over n is equal to 1 to capital N. Some a n times T of n W transpose P of xn plus B minus 1. Is that clear? So my constraint was Tn multiplied by Wx plus b is greater than 1, right? So I bring that greater than 1 to the left hand side. So it becomes the Tn times Yn minus 1 is greater than 0. Now I added this here, like with An. So A for A1 to A capital N is greater than or equal to 0 is the Lagrange multiplier. Okay. So we have a minus sign here because we want to minimize with respect to W and B, but maximize with respect to A. Okay. Now we have a modified objective function. Okay, we just want to minimize this L function. Now we know how to do this, right? Like, so you just differentiate with respect to the parameter that you want to minimize on, set it to 0, you have the answer, right? Like, so for example, let's take dou L by dou W. Okay, now when you differentiate W square by 2, what do you get? What do you get? It's just W, right? So you have W, okay, and there is a minus. Summation over N is equal to 1 to capital N. Okay, so you see that the W is only in this particular term, right? So the B term is going to go to 0. One term is also going to go to 0 when you differentiate. So when you differentiate this particular term, you're going to get An P of N P of X of. Is that right? So this is equal to 0. Now W is given by summation over N is equal to 1 to capital N, A of N, T of N, P of Xn. That's it. Okay. So let's just name these equations because we are going to substitute them all later. Let's just call this as equation. Well, the notes calls this as 2. So let's just call it as 2 to make it simple. So this is my equation 3. Okay. Similarly, I can find dou L by dou B. Okay. So when I do dou L by dou B, you see that the first term does not have any bias. 0. Now the second term, this one does not have any bias. This term does not have any bias. Only the B term has a bias. So the term that you are having is minus summation An Tn B, right? So when you differentiate that, you're going to get minus summation An Tn. There is B, so it becomes 1 is equal to 0. Is that clear? So this becomes summation over N is equal to 1 to capital N, An T of N is equal to 0. So we are just going to call this as equation 4. Is that clear? Simple. Now I'm going to substitute these two things into my previous equation, this equation. Okay. So let me copy this equation. Okay, it's going to be very difficult to copy. Okay. Here, like this. Okay. Now, I'm going to substitute the value of W. So we know that W is given by this summation, right? Like summation An P and P of X. So this is going to be 1 over 2. So this is W square. So there's going to be double summation. So summation over N is equal to 1 to capital N. Summation over M is equal to 1 to capital M. An AM, Tn Tm, P of Xn transpose P of Xm. Is that clear? So I have just substituted what is W square in this equation. Okay. Now similarly, minus, okay, summation over N is equal to 1 to capital N. Okay. Now here you see another W. I have to substitute W, so I'm going to put another summation. Summation M is equal to 1 to capital M. an, am, tn, tm, okay, phi of xn transpose phi of xm, okay, minus, so then the bias term. So summation n is equal to 1 to capital N, an, tn bias, okay, then the final minus one term. So plus summation over n is equal to 1 to capital N, am. Is there a tn? No, just a. Is that clear? Now, we already know from here that summation a and tn is equal to 0, right? So this term b is not, so the summation is not a function of b, right? So this term is 0. So I can just cancel this thing, whole thing together. Now, if you think about these two terms, it's one half minus 1 of the same term, right? So I can just rewrite this as summation over n is equal to 1 to capital N an minus 1 over 2 summation over n is equal to 1 to capital N summation over m is equal to 1 to capital M an am tn tm. Okay, then we have phi x of n transpose phi x of m. Is that clear? Now there's only one more thing left. I have to find the a, right? Like I want to maximize with respect to a. So I can set up a new function which is maximize with respect to a, is modified Lagrangian. Okay. Subject to constraints. An greater than or equal to 0, which is given by the Lagrangian for n is equal to 1 to capital N. And we also have another constraint which is summation n is equal to 1 to capital N a and p of n is equal to 0. Is that clear? Any questions? Any questions so far? Okay. Now, it's going to get easier now once we have this formulation. Okay, so now here specifically you have this function phi of xn transpose phi of x, right? It is a dot product of two feature vectors. Okay, so we are going to give a name for this dot product. Okay, so we're going to call this as some kernel k of x of n, x of n. Okay, so k of x dash is defined as phi of x transpose phi of x dash. Okay, so this is called as the kernel function. Okay, now with the kernel function, right? Like let me rewrite this function objective. So this is maximize a L of a is equal to summation over n is equal to 1 to capital N an minus 1 over 2 summation n is equal to 1 to capital N summation m is equal to 1 to capital M am tn tm k of xn xm such subject to constraints an greater than or equal to 0 for n is equal to 1 to capital N summation over n is equal to 1 to capital N a of n is equal to 0. Okay, now this is also a quadratic problem, right? Now let me remind us the previous quadratic problem that we started with, right? So the previous quadratic problem that we started with was arg min wb 1 over 2 w square subject to t of n w transpose p of xn plus bias. Right? So this is the problem that we started with. Maybe let me zoom out a bit. So this is the problem that we started with, right? And this is the problem that currently came up. Okay. Now we are going to call this first problem that we started with as the primal problem. Okay. Now, you solve the first problem with respect to W and B, you get the solution for max margin, right? However, instead of solving the primal problem, you can also solve this equivalent problem that we just derived. We are going to call this problem as a dual problem. Okay. Now, dual problem is about maximizing with respect to A, right? However, you find the right A, then you can find W and B because you have the equations already. So they are both going to give you the same solution. Okay, is that clear? You solve either of these two problems. Okay, we are not going to solve this problem today in the class. Okay, so like there are standard quadratic programming solutions, solvers available in the literature. Like there are also a lot of packages available for solving quadratic programming. Like so, you can define these problems in those packages. It is going to give you the solution. Okay. Now, in general, finding a solution for a quadratic programming problem is in like let's say there are m variables, then it's going to be order m cubed. Okay. So if you have m variables, then the solution takes order m cubed. Okay. Computational complexity. Now, this is where the primal and dual come into picture. Well, there are many reasons, but this is one of the reasons. Okay. Now, if you think about the primal problem, so this is the problem with the parameters as variables, right? Imagine you have 100 parameters. Then solving this problem is going to take order 100 cubed, right? However, let's say there are only 20 examples. Okay. Now you look at the dual problem. So the dual problem is maximizing with respect to A, right? So now A is a bunch of Lagrangian multiplier for 20 examples. So there are only 20 Lagrangian multipliers. So it is going to take you order 20 cubed to solve the dual problem. Okay. Now, depending on whether you have more data or more parameters, you can pick either of the problems to solve. Okay. So as a summary, right? So if n, which is the number of examples, is greater than m, which is the number of parameters, which problem will you solve? If number of examples is greater than number of parameters, you'll solve the primal, right? So you can solve the primal problem. If m is greater than n, then you solve the dual problem. Is that clear? Yeah.
You find the value in this problem.
Okay, that was my next question actually.
Okay.
So with solving primal problem, the next steps are easy, right? Like you have W and B, so you can just make predictions. But what about the dual problem? You solve the dual problem and you get A. So how do you compute W and B from A, right? So it so happens that it is actually very easy because we have all the things necessary. So how to find W and B after solving the dual problem, right? So we already know that W is given by summation n is equal to 1 to capital N, A of n, T of n, phi of x of n, right? So we know this, like this is what we derived phi by setting dou W, dou L by dou W is equal to 0, right? Now, okay, so y of x, my prediction is given by W transpose P of x plus bias, right? This is what my model is. Now I can just substitute this W value here. So this becomes summation over n is equal to 1 to capital N, A n, T of n kernel of x n plus b. Is that clear? Is that clear? So what I have done is I just substituted this W equation in the model. My model was W transpose x plus b. Now the W just becomes summation over n, an pn. There's going to be a pxn, which is going to be multiplied by this p of x. So we have already defined this as a kernel. So just kernel of x plus b. Okay. So what I have done here is I just eliminated W. Like you don't have W. Like you can, if you have a, you can directly make your predictions without W. Okay. However, there is a small catch here. Now, let us try to compare these two models or two versions of the same model, right? They are both same model, but implemented in two different ways. Now, if you think about the first way in which we have implemented, you integrated all your knowledge in W, right? Even if you have million examples or 100 examples or just 1,000 examples or 10 million examples, the W is not going to change. So the amount of computation you have to do to implement this equation is constant, irrespective of the data set size, right? However, if you solve the dual problem, okay, now this is my model. Now this model has a summation over n is equal to 1 to capital N, right? Which means now this equation is going to take time linearly proportional to the number of examples that I have. Like if I have 10 examples, the summation is quicker. If I have million examples, the summation is going to be longer, right? Now this is very inefficient, right? Like so, like why do we want to spend so much compute for every example prediction? Like on the other hand, Primal is giving you a very compact notation, right? Now, it looks like a bad thing, but the good news here is a lot of an is going to be 0. Okay. Now this summation is a very sparse summation. Okay. So in fact, I'm going to show you now that this an is going to be non-zero only for like data points where the constraints are active. Now we know that there are only very few data points for which the constraints are active, right? So in that case, like the summation is not as bad as we think. Okay, so now let's try to understand that a bit. So now to understand that, right, like so like how sparse is the summation? So that requires like what is known as KKT conditions. Okay, so the dual problem should always satisfy KKT conditions. So if you did not do the readings, you should go back and really do the Lagrangian multipliers reading once again. So now it's okay if you don't know what are there. Okay, I'm going to write those conditions. Okay, so the conditions are really simple. The conditions are an should be always greater than or equal to 0. We have already seen that, right? And t of n y of xn minus 1 should be greater than or equal to 0. This is also given from the objective function, right? Like nothing fancy. But what is a little bit non-trivial here is multiplication of these two things should be equal to 0. So a of n multiplied by t of n y of xn minus 1, okay, should be equal to 0. Okay, so what does this mean? This has a huge implication. This just means that for every data point, either an is equal to 0 or this is equal to 0. Now, if the second term is 0, where would those data points be? So I have a data point for which this term is 0. If this term is 0, that just means that Tn multiplied by y of xn is equal to 1. So what are those data points? Sorry? Yeah, those are closest data points, right? Like so now only for closest data points, to the margin, right? AN is not 0. So in general, after solving the dual problem, I can go find all the closest data points, okay, and change my summation, okay, and change my summation to something more efficient. Okay, I'm going to take this summation, okay, I'll put this summation here. I'm going to change this summation to something simpler, which is y of x is equal to, okay, summation over n belonging to a specific set of data points which are closest to the margin, a of n, t of n, k of x of n plus b. Okay. Now the good news is, even if you have a million data points, maybe there are only 100 points which are in the margin. Okay. Now we are going to call these data points which are crucial for the prediction as support vectors. Is it clear? Now, when you solve the dual version of max margin classifier, in the end, you just find all these data points for which which lies in the margin. Okay, so to give you an example, as usual with the circles and cross. So let's say I have a bunch of circles, I have a bunch of cross, and let's say this is my line. Okay, now hypothetically, let us just assume that these are all equidistant. Okay, now how many there are? There are 9 data points, right? Like maybe let's just make it bigger. Okay, I have something like this. There are a lot of data points. And any way you would do summation over everything, right? Instead, now you just need to do summation over this, and this point. Because only for these 4 points, A is going to be non-zero, okay? And for all the other data points, by definition, A is going to be 0. Is that clear? So we are going to call these 4 data points as support vectors. Is that clear? So once you train your model, okay, so we are going to call this algorithm, like the max margin classifier, a support vector mission. Okay, so once you train your support vector mission for SVM, right? So then you will throw all the examples except for the support vectors. Now you will use the support vectors whenever you are making predictions. Is that clear? Any questions? Now, there is still one thing missing, right? So how do I find B? So I only have A from the dual problem. So how do I find B? Any idea? How do I find B? Now, well, there is a simple idea. So whenever you are, consider any support vector, okay? Now for any support vector, T of n multiplied by summation over n belonging to S, an T of n, k of x n. Okay, there's a confusion. Let's just put this as m. Plus bias is equal to 1, right? So we know that for data points in the boundary for the support vectors, Tn multiplied by y of n is equal to 1, right? Now you can take any support vector, substitute all the things that you know, only bias is not known, you can compute the bias value. Is that clear? Is that clear? Okay. Now, so the max margin classifier that we have seen so far, right? So this is trying to minimize the following error function. Okay. So the error function is this: summation over n is equal to 1 to capital N E infinity of y of x of n t of n minus 1 plus lambda times w square. Okay, where E infinity of z is equal to 0 if z is greater than or equal to 0 and infinity otherwise. Okay, now here is one thing to remember. If this algorithm finds a solution, that solution has 0 errors. Okay, so this still works only for linearly separable problems. So we haven't handled the nonlinear, like not linearly separable problem case yet. Okay, that is what we will do in the rest of the lecture. But for now, we assume that the data is linearly separable. So any line which has mistakes, the first error function is going to give you infinity error. So the first error function makes sure that you find a line which does not have any errors, and this combined objective function makes sure that you find the max margin. Okay. Now, as long as lambda is greater than 0, the value doesn't matter. In this case, you don't need to tune lambda. So you can set any lambda which is greater than 0, and that is going to help you solve the problem. Is that clear? Now here is an example. So in this case, like you see a bunch of red and green classes, and I have trained both logistic regression and a max margin classifier here. You can see that there's a slight difference in their answer, like so. So you see red and blue lines. They're very close, but they are not exactly same, but they're very close. Okay. And you also see that there are 3 support vectors for this particular problem. Now, depending on the complexity of the data set, there's going to be many more supporting vectors. Is that clear? So, any questions so far? Yeah?
Wouldn't be super sensitive to like outliers and things like that?
That's a good question, but we haven't started thinking about that yet, right? So far, we have a clean, linearly separable case. There are no outliers. Okay, so we are going to talk about the outlier situation. Okay, but that's a very good question leading to the next topic. But there is a question in the chat. In scikit-learn, it seems there are linear, circular, kernel, and so on. Could you please help us understand how it is related to the kernel presented here? Okay, now, probably we will answer this question towards the end of the course, okay? So I have defined the kernel today, but after probably a few more lectures, like we will revisit kernels, and we will show like how we can make models nonlinear by just changing the kernel function. Okay, but maybe I can give you a quick teaser. Now, here is my model, right? This one. If you think about it, you take any linear model, one way to make the model nonlinear is by using basis functions, right? So you use basis functions, you take x and you get p of x, which is nonlinear transformation, then you have nonlinear model, right? Now, the other way to make things nonlinear is by playing with this kernel. Okay, you see that kernel is a function of 2x. Now I can think about, just like how we have many basis functions, we can have many kernel functions. Okay, I can have a Gaussian kernel, or I can have like polynomial kernel. Like I can have many other kernel functions, like which again would make this model nonlinear. Okay, but we will not talk about it now, so don't worry about it. Like we're going to revisit that after 3-4 lectures. Okay, shock. Okay, so okay, so but probably let's come back to the question that we wanted to discuss, like which is based on his question, like so, like what if there are outliers, right? Like so, or a more general way to put that is, what if my problem is not linearly separable, which is what most of the problems are, right? We don't care that much about linearly separable problems. They're very easy to solve. You have a linearly separable problem. There are like a lot of efficient solutions that we have seen so far, right? So now, what if the problem is not linearly separable? Or in other words, let's say there is some overlap in class distribution. Okay, so which is very common, right? Like for example, let's say I have a bunch of circles and crosses like this. Okay, now probably the most reasonable line to draw here is this, right? Something like this, right? Ignoring this one particular circle. However, the max margin classifier will not stop, or like it cannot find solution here, because it is going to give infinity for all lines, right? Like because the error function that max margin classifier has is very, where is it? So where is the error function? Okay, so the error function that max margin classifier has is too strong, in the sense it gives infinity error whenever there is one mistake, right? Which is a problem, right? So like now there are many situations where like you will have overlapping class distribution. So how do we solve that? Okay. Now, one intuitive way to solve this is, it looks like the E infinity error is too strong. So can we relax that error a little bit, right? So instead of giving infinity error, like what other error can we give whenever there's a mistake? Any ideas? Yeah.
The number of misclassified points.
Okay, so you want to minimize the number of misclassified points. Okay, that's a good idea. Any other solutions? Yeah.
The distance from the margin could be error.
Yeah, so if you make a mistake, it jumps out of the margin, then the distance from the margin is your error. Like you can try to minimize in a soft way, right? Like so instead of being too harsh, like hard, like so the algorithm that we have seen so far is like very hard classifier, in the sense you make a mistake, infinity error, right? Like you can be soft and say, oh, you make a mistake, so this mistake costs you this distance. Now you make 100 mistakes, you have a bunch of distances summed together. I want to minimize this sum as much as possible. That's the key here. Okay. Now, how much do you care about the error, right? Like you can tweak that parameter. Okay. So we're going to do that by using this idea of slack variables. Okay. So first, let me explain what are slack variables. Then it becomes easier to formulate the problem. Okay. Now slack variables are a bunch of epsilons, okay, which are all going to be greater than or equal to 0 for n is equal to 1. Okay. If you have n data points, I'm going to have n slack variables, epsilons. Okay. Now, well, literally, it just means how much you can slack. Okay. So, like, if your slack is 0, then it means you have satisfied the problem. Okay. So, like, you are within the boundary. The higher the slack, it just means that you're moving far away from the margin. Is that clear? Our goal is to minimize it as much as possible. Okay. Now epsilon n is equal to 0 is equal to 0 for data points that are on or inside the correct margin. Okay. For rest of the data points, my slack is defined as the distance. Okay, so epsilon n is going to be t of n minus y of xn, absolute value for other data points. Is that clear? Now let us see some examples. Let's start with picture. So now let's say this is my decision boundary and these are my margins. Okay. Now let us say I have crosses here and circle here. Okay, now this is y is equal to 0, this is y is equal to 1, this is y is equal to -1. Okay, now we're going to talk about some sample example. Like for example, let's consider any data point that is in this region, right? It's going to be epsilon is equal to 0. Okay, anything which is within the boundary, epsilon is equal to 0. Now let's say there is a point here. This is also epsilon is equal to 0. Okay, your epsilon for a data point is 0 as long as the data point is in the margin or within the margin. Okay, now the moment it goes outside the margin, you're going to get some positive epsilon. Okay, now the epsilon in this case, like for example, there is a data point here. Okay, now remember that this data point is still correctly classified because it is in the right side of the red line, right? However, it is outside the margin. Okay, so it's going to have some slack value, but this slack value is going to be epsilon less than 1. Anything which is above the red line or serious mistakes, right? Like or mistakes in general, like so this epsilon is going to be greater than 1. Now this epsilon value is going to increase as the data point is too far away. For example, let's say I have a cross here. So this is an example of an outlier, right? So all my crosses are supposed to be here. But maybe someone wrongly classified, like wrongly labeled the data set. There's only one cross here. Often you would remove this outlier if you do outlier processing. But in this case, like this is going to give you a huge cost. So this algorithm is kind of susceptible to outliers. Is that clear? Yeah.
Between the two margins.
That's a good question. Can there be points in between? Okay, there cannot be. I don't think that we can have a point here, but I will double check. Okay, because if there is a point, then the margin moves. Oh, okay. Now I understand why I did that. So let us keep it. No, the point is this is not the converged solution. Okay, so this is just one time step in the process. Like you might have, like you're moving things around, right? So, but I will still verify if we can have something in between. Okay, so now the exact constraints that we had before, right? We are going to relax those constraints. Okay, now we are going to relax it like this. So T of n, y of x of n is going to be greater. Previously it was greater than or equal to 1, right? Now I'm going to say it's going to be greater than or equal to 1 minus epsilon n. For n is equal to 1 to capital N. Okay, so where epsilon n is greater than or equal to 0. Is that clear? Okay. Now, depending on the value of epsilon, many things are possible. For example, if epsilon n is equal to 0, then that means that the data point lies either on or within the margin, within the correct margin. Okay. In which case, the data is correctly classified. Okay. Now, if the epsilon value is between 0 and 1, okay, now you are lying inside the margin, okay, but on the correct side. You are still on the correct side, which means the data is still correctly classified. However, if epsilon n is greater than 1, then it lies on the wrong side, which means the data point is wrongly classified. Is that clear? So what we have done so far is like we have relaxed the hard margin constraint to some soft margin constraint now. Okay. Now we are allowing some data points to be misclassified. It's okay, but they are going to cost you. Okay. First important note is this process is actually kind of like sensitive to outliers, right? Like, because if you have outliers, they're going to have huge costs, which can screw up the entire process. Okay. Now, with this modified soft loss, right? So I can actually change my objective function. So my new goal is to maximize the margin while softly penalizing for examples that lie on the wrong side. Okay. Or in other words, you minimize, okay, 1/2 W square, which was the previous one. Now I'm going to add plus some C times summation over n is equal to 1 to capital N epsilon n, where C is greater than 0. So we're going to call C as the cost parameter. Is that clear? Now, previously in the hard version, I just had this minimization with respect to 1/W square with some constraints, right? Like I haven't put the constraints here yet. We have to put the constraints. Maybe we'll do that after the break. But for now, I just added an extra thing to make things softer, right? Like, so I'm just saying that you have to do this process. However, I'm giving you some leniency. Okay, so the leniency is decided based on the C value. If I put C to be very high, then I'm being less lenient. Okay, if C is small, then it means that I'm being more lenient. So you try to minimize epsilon as much as possible, but like you don't need to make it 0. Okay, now if I put C is equal to infinity, what would happen? You get the hard margin version back. Okay. Okay, so I think we will stop here and take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and solve the soft version of SVR.